So in this video, we'll be exploring about what exactly should be our thought process while writing code in React. So let's say we are given a component to design. So just by looking at the component, we must be able to analyze that is how exactly the code flow is gonna happen so that we will be able to design that component successfully. So let's move on to the next part. So as you can see over here in the screenshot, we are given a particular component to design. So let's break this down into simpler parts. So as you can see, we have a main component that is known as your card component, and that is your entire box which contains all of these small designs inside it. And within the card component, we have two more components being rendered, that is your image component as well as your button component. And apart from the button and image, we have two or three pieces of text which say Slack and the number of followers, as well as at the bottommost part we have a button, or we have a pressable kind of design which says view full page. So this is essentially considered to be your entire component, and within your component we have a bunch of unique designs being rendered, and under them we have two more components, that is your image component as well as your button component. So this is just a gist about your design that's being shown, that is for your card component. So now let's understand the hierarchical data relationship of this entire card component. So at the top level we have this card component, that is your entire part which contains your image, button as well as all of those three texts that are present on the card. So that's the reason your card component is going to be at the top level, and under the card or below the card we're going to have two more components, that is your image component as well as your button component. And your image component is being responsible for showing that particular image onto the card, whereas your button component is being responsible for showing that follow button inside your card, as you can see over here in the card component. So that's pretty much about your hierarchical data relationship. So since this is a small kind of component, it's easier and better to understand how exactly the data is being passed, or how exactly your card component is being structured over here. So let's further move on. So the next one is where exactly the state should live. So as you can see, the card component is at the top level, so the entire state is going to reside from there, and from that particular card component we would be sending information to your image as well as to your button component as well. So based on that, we're going to design it into this particular card component. So at the top level we would have our card component, and to that particular card component we're going to send some information as props, so that would be utilized into all of these two sub components, that is your image as well as your button component. And the same thing is going to be initialized over here, and the card structure is going to be shown, or the card design is going to be shown just like this. So yes, now let's understand how exactly we can design this piece of component with the help of code. So let's understand this code snippet line by line. So at the top of the screenshot we have three lines where the imports are being done. So initially we are importing React, and we're importing two components, that is image as well as button, from those particular files, right? So the next thing we are going to do is we're going to define your interface, because this is written using TypeScript. So this piece of code, that is interface card props, so this usually defines a TypeScript interface called as card props in our case, which actually specifies the structure of properties or props that the card component can accept or will accept, right? So this basically helps in enforcing your type safety when using this particular card component. So as you can see, we have four things, that is src. Src is required for your image, and alt, that is alternative value, so both are of type string, so we need to pass in that. And next one is your button text, even that is of type string, so pass in it as a string. The next one is a on click, so this is basically a function with no parameters that returns nothing but a void. So this function will be called when your button is clicked. So these are all of the informations for your interface, that is for your card props, right? So the next thing we have is your card component definition. So here we're going to say const card is going to be equals to react.fc. Within that we're going to pass in your card props that is just defined above, and here we're going to define the required things within the card component. So this line essentially says that this defines a functional component named card, right? Whereas your react.fc, and within that we have the card props, so this tells TypeScript that card is a functional component that accepts your card props as its props. So essentially FC is your functional component, And furthermore, we are trying to destructure, as you can see. So we are trying to destructure four values, that is src, your alt, your button text, as well as your on click. So let's say instead of using your props.src or props.alt or props.button text, we are directly trying to extract all of these four values by destructuring. So the next part is here we are essentially trying to return some JSX that is going to contain outer div. Within that, we're going to have your image component being rendered, which is going to show the image, which in turn is going to take in the src, and whatever src is coming from the props, we're going to show that, right? Similarly, the next one is for your button component. It's going to have your button text and it's going to have a on click being shown, and we're trying to export the default card that is at the last line. So you can actually use this card in your main app.tsx, and then you can check out the output part. So that's it about this particular video. So we learned about how exactly to think once when a component is given for us to design. So we break down components into simpler components, and then we design each of them, and finally we design the entire component. So just a summary about the entire thing. So this card component accepts an image, src, as well as all text. It displays an image component with those properties, and it also renders a button with your button text and an on click function as well. So this component is reusable and type safe due to TypeScript's card props interface. So that's the entire summary of this particular video. So that's it about this video. Let's see you in the next one, and then thank you for watching.